Hi everyone, Emily here from Emily's Excellent Epics. And today I have for you, let me back up. Let's try that over. Let's rewind and start that back. Okay, let's try again. Hi everyone, Emily here from Emily's Excellent Epics, and Merry Christmas. Today is December 25th. I hope that you are enjoying this time with your friends and your family, celebrating Christ's birth. And today I have for you something a little different in my Bookmas videos. So December 1st through the 24th, I was counting down my top 24 books of the year. And I'm going to, in future videos and future years going forward, I'm going to make my calendar year for the sake of a countdown being December of the previous year through the end of November. Just it makes things easier for me. This year is going to be a special homage to my mother, where I am going to highlight some of her favorite Christmas things, some books that were favorite of hers that we shared together, and then some movies. Why am I paying homage to my mother today at Christmas? So in July of 2009, my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. A little PSA announcement for you all. Ovarian cancer, there's no screening test for ovarian cancer. You have to know the symptoms. It's very important that you know the symptoms, because once you are experiencing symptoms, that's like stage 3, stage 4. So as soon as you experience symptoms, go to a doctor. Get tested, get an ultrasound. What are those symptoms? Bloating, unexplained bloating, back pain, water retention, constipation, diarrhea, bleeding. If you are menopausal or postmenopausal and you start bleeding, go to a doctor immediately. Like that is an immediate thing. So my mother had been experiencing symptoms for 6 months and never said anything to anyone. And in July of 2009, she went to the ER. I went with her, and she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. I wasn't going to cry, and here I'm crying. Sorry about that. When the doctors in the ER gave her the diagnosis based on the looks on the face, I knew that she probably was going to pass away before the end of the year. And in 2009, on Christmas morning, she passed away. Sometimes I can talk about it without crying. Sometimes I cry. Today's one of those crying times, and that's okay. But I just don't like crying. Okay. So at any rate, so she passed away Christmas morning. That was our wake-up call. We went to the nursing home, said goodbye to her. We celebrated Christmas because my nephews were in elementary school then. And then that night, as I was driving my dad home, he asked me, can you please come with me and help pick out an outfit? Because the next day we were going to the funeral home. So, that was Christmas in 2009. Some Christmases are easier than others. Actually, what has gotten harder for me as I've gotten older for Christmas is the fact that I don't have my own family and I don't have my own children. But I'm Christmas sometimes can be hard. My mother loved Christmas. She loved everything about it. She loved the decorations. She loved the lights. She loved the baking. She don't love the cooking. She hated clean up afterwards. Understandable. I'm going to blow my nose. Hold on. She had a group of friends a couple of friends that she was really good friends with. And every year they would buy little gifts for each other from the Dollar Tree. They had a really, really small budget, and they said, we're going to buy, Dollar Tree gifts. And they would do a gift. They would get together for lunch at Red Lobster and exchange gifts. And speaking of Red Lobster, my mom loved, those glasses. I don't know if you know them, but they were they had holly and ivy around them, and they were like dinnerware, drink glasses, like wine glasses kind of. She always had to get a set. Like her goal was to get a set of 12, which she met that goal, but she would get a few every year to build up that stock. And they would exchange. She loved like all the clip trappy stuff, little trinkets that you could get, and knick-knacky stuff that you could get at the Dollar Tree. She just loved Christmas. It was her favorite holiday. So today I'm going to highlight, like I said, some decorations, books that she shared with me. Some of them were given as Christmas gifts, and then some movies that we loved to watch together. So first of all, this is me and my mother. I clean up good, don't I? I'm so modest. But this picture was taken at. Sorry, I'm trying to avoid a glare there. This picture was taken at one of my best friend's wedding. I've known this friend since the 4th grade. This was my mid-20s, and I stood up in her wedding. And when this picture was taken, I knew that this probably was going to be one of the few last pictures I took with my mother, simply because we just weren't big picture takers in my family. I don't have a whole lot of pictures of me and my family, just because we weren't picture takers. And I was the youngest of 4, and I feel like baby books, like parents go gung-ho and like the first couple of kids, and then by the time the last one comes along, they just kind of peter out. So that was my case. That was my mother. I do have a picture of my mother when she was a little girl, and it's so wild because it's like my face on this little girl's body. And people are like, when they see it, they're like, wait, you're the youngest of 4, but your brother in this picture is younger than you. And I'm like, yeah, because that's not me. That's my mom. Then I'm going to highlight some Christmas decorations. So this snowman, like I said, my mom loved Christmas decorations. This snowman family, I got at American Sales on Black Friday. So one of my brothers and I, it was tradition, we would go shopping. No, we did not get up way early. We would go around 10 o'clock to the mall, and we would go shopping. We'd spend like an hour or so at the mall. We'd go grab a lunch, and then we would watch a movie, and then we'd always hit up American Sales. And that year we got some, this was in 2009, we got some decorations for my mom's room at the nursing home. That was one thing that I got her. And then this snowman is super cute. This I got at an art fair in a suburb near where I grew up. And I got another, this is just like a regular, like little statue. But I have another one that I got for my sister that's like a tea light holder. So cute. I love this snowman so much. And I love snowmen for decorations. I have like a little row of snowmen on top of like a glass bookcase that I have, just because like you could leave them up all winter long. I don't, because like all of my decorations, like once I put one decoration, like if I take down my Christmas tree, all the decorations have to get taken down, simply because of how they get packed up in my storage closet. All right, let's get into some of the books that she shared with me that we loved and read together. The first one is The Velveteen Rabbit. Now, I have not read this since I was a little girl. And the reason being is this was the story that my mother would read out loud to me all the time when I was sick. And I was an early reader. I mean, I grew up around books. My father was a huge reader. And like, I knew everybody at the libraries by first name basis when I was a little girl. And everyone knew me. And I lived within walking distance to libraries. So I was reading pretty early and pretty voraciously. And I was someone who, I'm not an auditory processor. I know some people love audiobooks and grew up loving to be read out loud too. I was not that person, because I just would get so distracted when I was getting read out loud to. But this was a book that my mother would read out loud to me. And especially when I was sick, this was the book that she would pull and read out loud to me. And this is, from what I understand, like if I remember correctly, it's a stuffed rabbit who dreams of being real one day. So at some point in time, I do need to read it again. Oh, look at that. It's got such pretty pictures in there. Hold on, let me show you a picture. Like I said, I have not read this since I was like 7. So it's just also wild to think that this book is well over 40 years old. Another set of books. These are not children's books. I'm trying to go in order of like books that are not Christmassy related to more Christmassy related books, if that makes sense. My mother and I, we both loved historical romances, and she, especially as she got older, her knees were really bad, her back was really bad. So driving was just not fun. Getting in and out of a car was not fun. I get it. I'm in the same boat right now. But she would give me money, and she would give me a list of books that she wanted of her favorite authors that she was looking forward to. And she'd say, can you go to Borders? And do you remember Borders? I miss Borders. So she would give me money to pick out books and offer a list. And then she'd also give me a little extra money. And she's like, because you're buying books for me, go pick up yourself a book too. And it was great because not only would I buy books for her, like one, I would get to be able to buy my own book, but the books that I was buying for her, I would also read. It was a wonderful deal for me. And because I had a Borders account, I got all those rewards points. Score. Like I said, I miss Borders. At any rate, one of our favorite authors to read was Catherine Coulter, and this is the Nightingale Legacy and the Wyndham Legacy. And there's a second book in there called the Valentine's Legacy, which I don't have. I need to find. I mean, I got these free. I found them years later. My library was getting rid of them for free, and I snagged them up. And let me just tell you what the Nightingale Legacy is about. I'm not going to tell you the other two. You do need to read them in order because characters from all of the books appear in other books. So this one is Caroline Derwent Jones is on the eve of her 19th birthday, and she wants to get away from the control of her guardian, Mr. Fox, who is very scary. And she manages to escape him, and only to find herself in the company of Frederick North Nightingale, Lord Chiltern. And there is a mystery in the air. She's drawn more and more to him, a man who claims he's a lonely beggar, his soul suited for solitude and for walking his hounds on the moors. So mysteries old and mysteries new abound. Misogyny is rampant in Lord Chiltern's house. And yes, some of these romance novels, this was published. Wow, look at that. There's an old bookmark in here. It's cute. This was published in 1994. Yes, there is a lot of misogyny in some of these older romance novels. But you know what? I've decided the older historical romance novels, and like just older romance novels, period. I like some of it, how it's written. I'm like, how is this different from bully romances that are so popular now? Now, I've not read a bully romance, so I don't know. But to me, just how the men treat the women, I'm like, I just feel like this would be similar to bully romances. If you have read bully romances and read like romance novels from this time period, tell me if I'm wrong in that comparison. All right. Then another book that my mother and we loved, and I think she gave this to me either for my birthday or for Christmas one year, that is Daddy Longlegs by Jean Webster. This is the story of Judy Abbott. She is an orphan. She grows up in an in an orphanage, and one day she gets called into the principal's office, I guess, the founder of the orphanage's office. And on her way there, it's a stormy, dark day. She gets like the shadow of a man who's very tall, but she doesn't see what he looks like. And she learns from the head of the orphanage that this man has agreed to pay for her college education with the intent that she would study to become an author. And the condition is She just has to write him letters, updating him about her life and her progress in her studies. And so she goes off to college and studies, makes friends, gets into adventures, draw pictures, and she calls her benefactor Daddy Longlegs because of how tall he is. This is truly a delightful book. If you are someone who likes to listen to books on audiobook, I don't recommend this on the first read on audiobooks simply because there's like little drawings throughout the book that she includes in her letters to Daddy Longlegs. This is all told epistolary, so if you're ever got a reading challenge that you're looking for epistolary novels, this is all told in letters. Very cute. There is a musical movie made starring Fred Astaire. I do not recommend it. It was horrible. So don't watch the movie. Then the next book. So book number 1 in this series, There Is No Dust Jacket. So book number 1 is called The Negotiator by D. Henderson. But I'm going to show you Truth Seeker, which is book number 3 by D. Henderson. So this is a Christian, like thriller, like modern contemporary romance thriller series. We follow the O'Malley family. The O'Malleys are all now adults that were raised in the foster care system, like in an orphanage. And they all kind of adopted each other as siblings. So they're not all related, but they are like their adopted brothers and sisters. And they all have pretty high profile jobs. The negotiator is about an FBI negotiator. There's a guardian who's like a U.S. Marshal. One is a firefighter. I think one is an EMT. One is like goes in and helps with like counseling people after they've gone through like hurricanes and things like that. Like she's on the ground helping with that. And so they're all like thrillers, like in contemporary Christian romances. My mother and I reread this series together. We loved it, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Like every birthday or Christmas, if a new one came out in the series, I knew that that would be one of my gifts. Whew. The next is just a beloved two books in a two different beloved series by some of my favorite authors growing up. And I've had these books for like 41 years because I think I got them when I was 7, either for my birthday or for Christmas. And that would be Anne of Green Gables and Emily of New Moon by Ellen Montgomery. Anne of Green Gables is her, for sure, most famous series. We follow Anne Shirley, who is an orphan, and she gets taken in by Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert, two siblings who were looking to adopt a boy to help Matthew out around the farm, and there was a mistake, and Anne Shirley, this precocious orphan, gets sent to them instead, and oh, the adventures she gets into. I personally, my favorite one is, I just had a brain fart moment there. The Tea Party with Diana Barry. Oh my gosh, the Tea Party with Diana Barry. Gilbert Cuthbert was my first book boyfriend before I even knew what a book boyfriend was. I loved Gilbert Blythe. Did I say Gilbert Cuthbert? I don't know what I meant to say. Gilbert Blythe was my first book boyfriend. And the adaptation with Megan Follows and Jonathan Crombie is the only adaptation to watch. It's just so beautifully done with wonderful actors. I will say this, like the third one where they're married and like he goes off to World War I and she follows him, like that was trash. Don't watch that one. Watch the first 2, skip the third. Also, I have to say, my middle name is Anne, but there's no E. And I was like, Mom, why did you not name me with an E? Because she was afraid that people would call me Annie. Emily of New Moon also follows an orphan. Her father dies at the beginning of this trilogy, and she goes to live with her 2 older spinster aunts. Sorry, I called them spinsters. That's a terrible phrase to use now, but that's what they used back then. That's why I used that. So she lives with these 2 older aunts, And she also really would love to be a writer and just all the growing pains. There is kind of an odd relationship with Dean, but she develops some beautiful friendships. This series, it's a trilogy. I didn't like as much as my Anne series, but I still really enjoyed this. I read this one recently as an adult. I have not read the other two. I need to go back. All right. And the last book. This book I got for Christmas, and I've read it several times. And I need to read it again soon. It's been far too long. I just don't know when. And that would be Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. You can see it is much beloved. The cover is worn, pretty worn, but the cover is beautiful. We had sprayed edges before sprayed edges were such a huge thing. And then, hold on, I'm trying to find a beautiful picture. It has some just beautiful illustrations in the book. And if you're not aware of Little Women is a story of the four March sisters, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, as they grow up during the Civil War. Their father is off fighting for the North, and so it follows them growing up through the Civil War and post-Civil War. And my mother and I, we just loved this book and loved all of the movies. So, speaking of movies, we're now going to start talking about some movies that we loved together. The first one is The Last Unicorn. This one we saw together in a movie theater that is no more. But this is a story, this movie is actually adapted from the novel written by Peter Beagle, I want to say. Yes, Peter S. Beagle. And this movie actually is my favorite children's movie, although I don't really think it's a children's movie, but it's my favorite movie that I saw when I was a child. And, well, it is rated G, but it's pretty dark for a children's movie, although all children's movies are kind of dark, actually. At any rate, we follow, this stars Mia Farrow, Jeff Bridges, Angela Lansbury, and also Renee Auberjonois. He played Odo on Deep Space Nine. Who knew that he was in that movie? We follow our unicorn, and one day she's in the woods, and she hears these huntsmen talking, and she hears one of them say, "You are the last, like, you are the last unicorn." And she's like, "What is happening to all the unicorns?" And so she leaves her protected forest to figure out what's going on. Where are all of where are all the unicorns disappearing to? And she comes up with a band of traveling performers, and she's on a mission to rescue the unicorns. And it's a beautiful story, and it's heartbreaking. And I love the theme song to this movie. My mother and I, we also loved Pride and Prejudice. And this is the Pride and Prejudice to watch. Like, yes, I know there are other versions. I'm not a big fan of the Keira Knightley one. I do have it. I'll watch it occasionally. But this is the one to watch. I mean, it's just so beautifully faithful to the novel. Colin Firth as Mr. Darcy. Jennifer Eel as Lizzie Bennet is just wonderful. Yeah, so faithful. People are like, "Oh man, it's too long." Well, it's a miniseries, so break it up. Like, watch an episode at a time. It is okay. Like, it was a miniseries. It came on once a week on PBS, so feel free to break it up. And then I would be remiss if I did not mention Little Women. So I do have, this is funny, like you can see, there are some Korean here, because this is the only one that I could find on Amazon. This is the version with Elizabeth Taylor and Janet Leigh. Elizabeth Taylor played Amy. Or Beth. I can't remember. At any rate, it was either this version or the Elizabeth Taylor version. I can't remember which one. I do have the Elizabeth Taylor version, but it's on Prime to stream. That was when we got our VCR. That was the first movie that we checked out from the library, was one of these versions of Little Women. So I need to hook up my DVD player or my Blu-ray player to my TV so I can watch this version, because I do try to watch multiple versions of Little Women. The other version I like to watch is, of course, the 1995 version of Little Women. And this one, my mother and I, we saw in the movie theaters together and absolutely adored. My mother, I think, she did the one with Saoirse Ronan. I believe that's her last name. She obviously did not live to see that version. I think my mother would have loved that version as well. One last movie that I don't have, that I forgot to mention, that I need to mention, is Beauty and the Beast. Because again, that was another movie that we saw in the movie theaters together. Of course, how could you not love that movie? Belle, who's a reader, The Beast's Library, Angela Lansbury. My mother was such a huge Murder, She Wrote fan. My siblings and I growing up, we would joke, don't ever be friends with Angela Lansbury, because you'll either be murdered or be a suspect. You'll be a murder suspect. So we used to laugh about that. But just growing up, we would love watching Murder, She Wrote. The theme song is like just a comforting theme song for me. And my mother's favorite episodes was in the first season. One where Angela Lansbury is on a cruise ship, and then the one where they're at the bus station. They're like reined in at the bus station. Or no, at the diner. They were on a bus and they have to pull over and stop at a diner. Those were our two favorite episodes. And and another favorite movie of ours was The Fugitive with Harrison Ford. So thank you so much for watching. What are some of your favorite memories with your mother, or just favorite memories that you have growing up? I know sometimes family relationships and family dynamics can be good. They can also be painful. So if you don't want to share a favorite memory that you have with your mother, share just a favorite memory that you have growing up. Are any of these books, some of your or movies, favorites of yours? Leave me a comment down below. And as always, and for a comment, if you're not sure what to put down below, either leave a Christmas tree or a snowman emoji if you're not sure what to comment. And again, Merry Christmas. Take care. Bye.